Phaethon is a Bolliger Mabillard inverted coaster at Gyeongju World in South Korea. This is one of the more forgotten B&M inverts, so I had no clue what to expect going in. Would it be ultra intense like B&M's early inverts? Or would it be more graceful like their newer ones? The final result felt like a hybrid of Raptor at Cedar Point and Silver Bullet at Knott's Berry Farm. I will explain what I mean in this review. Gyeongju World opened in the 1980s. For its first 2 decades, it had a lot of off-the-shelf rides. But over the past 2 decades, they have become arguably the best park for coasters in South Korea. This began in 2007 with Phaethon. This was the first and only inverted coaster ever built in South Korea. Further, this was only the second custom B&M invert to be built in Asia. With Bolliger Mabillard, there is a noticeable distinction in the intensity of their coasters before and after 2000. Their earlier rides were noticeably whippier and tried to rip your face and legs off. You know exactly what I mean if you've ridden any of their Batman the Ride clones. Their newer loopers tend to be more graceful and dial back the forces. They are still undoubtedly thrill rides though. Phaethon still holds the record for the most inversions in South Korea with 6. It also remains one of the country's tallest and fastest roller coasters. It is an imposing ride, especially since the layout runs over and alongside the midway. You can walk right next to each of this ride's inversions. The paint scheme sort of reminds me of the old one on Nemesis. You have light gray track and dark gray supports, which works fine. This coaster is themed to Greek mythology. Phaethon is the son of Helios. Helios is not just a coaster of Phantasiana in Austria, he is also the sun god. Phaethon takes Helios' horse-drawn carriage on a joyride, nearly burning the earth. The premise is that riders are aboard the flaming carriage, which is why the trains have a fire-colored paint scheme and textured seats. I also love the visuals at the start of the queue. There's a grand entry sign with these large stone statues, something fit for a Greek god. The detail is incredible. Then you head inside a massive temple. It looks even more impressive than the one in Disneyland's Indiana Jones Adventure. The indoor portion is ominous with the dark lighting, human remains, and creepy music. I think the doom and gloom vibe is because Phaethon's tail ends with Zeus striking him down with a lightning bolt for his reckless behavior. There is no theming during the ride itself, but that is pretty typical for most inverts outside the ones in Europe. Going into my visit, I had been warned that the coasters at Gyeongju World had poor throughputs. They have multiple trains for their major coasters, but they typically run just one train and everything. That was the case on my visit on a summer weekday. Further, they will not admit guests into the station until the prior guests have left the unload platform, causing an additional delay in boarding. Phaethon fortunately accommodates the most riders of any of their coasters. The train seats a max of 32 riders, as it is comprised of 8 rows of 4. Crews were decently fast at checking restraints once everyone was seated though. It just took a while to get to that point. While their other 2 major coasters had 45 to 60 minute waits for me, Phaethon was surprisingly a walk-on for most of the day. As a result, I got many laps on this coaster, especially since the queues for the other coasters closed early due to their lengthy waits. One very important touring note: this coaster does not operate in the rain. This policy is shared with Gyeongju World's other coasters and many others in South Korea, and I've heard it takes a while for Gyeongju World to reopen their coasters after the rain stops, so plan accordingly if there's rain in the forecast. Honestly, I would just try to visit this park on a clear day to avoid any issues. At the end of the queue, the employees admit enough people into the station to fill the next train, so seating is purely on a first-come basis. However, it can get chaotic and confusing due to the load procedures. Most rides have guests select their row before opening the air gates. That way, you know clearly which row to go to. When you reach the load platform on Phaethon, all the air gates are already open. And because you are instructed to completely empty your pockets, almost everyone must go to the cubbies to store their belongings before taking their seats. This turns the seat selection process into a free-for-all. I thought the coaster was slightly better in the front. This row has the unobstructed view that thrives on an invert, and the G's feel a bit more sustained. The back has more whip though. so that seat is worth trying as well. The back is pretty easy to get, more guests want the front. My tip is to enter the station with everything in a bag. That way you only have one thing to drop off at the cubbies, meaning you can more quickly get to your seat. Most people only start unloading their pockets when they reach the cubbies, meaning they will take longer. There are no metal detectors, but the crew will ask you to remove items from your pockets if they spot anything, so try to follow the rules so the dispatches are quicker. You can wear glasses on this coaster though, which is a rarity at a lot of Asian parks. If you're part of a larger group, have one person run all your belongings over while everyone else grabs seats. If you're a smaller group and see a partially filled row, don't be afraid to ask if the other seats are available. Everyone will have to do this towards the end of the loading process because employees and guests have no visibility to the other group sizes. It is worth noting you cannot wait an extra cycle if the seat you want is already occupied. This policy is shared in all the park's coasters. Once you take your seat, you are secured by a hard over-the-shoulder restraint. These are commonly found in the older B&M loopers. These are ultimately comfortable though because the coaster tracks smoothly. It is worth noting they have a leather wrap on them though. Not sure if that's for cleanliness or comfort purposes, but it does not impact the ride in my opinion. These restraints are not the most accommodating if you have a large belly though. I did not notice any quote-unquote big boy seats. These are the double buckle seats offered in several B&M loopers that have a larger verify, making them more accommodating for riders. Once dispatched, you turn left out of the station. You then ascend 148-foot or 45-meter tall lift hill. This makes it one of the taller B&M inverts, specifically the 6th tallest. Much of the lift goes past trees, but you get a great view of the right side of the park once you're higher up. Once at the top, you have a small pre-drop, followed by a large leftward plunge. This has solid whip in the rear rows as you're snapped into it. Then the pullout offers very strong positive Gs, particularly if you're in the front row. These strong Gs continue on the first inversion, the vertical loop. They let up slightly at the apex, but I typically would gray out in the front in the entry, as the Gs carried over from the drop. Then I would gray out in the back on the exit when the train is yanked downwards. This is my favorite inversion on the ride due to its power. Next is a 0G roll. The forces vary wildly depending upon where you're seated. It offers decent laterals in the front, but since you're pushed through the element so quickly, you only get a hint of float there. Meanwhile, the element is much floatier in the rear rows as you navigate it more gracefully. You then charge through a cobra roll, which is a relatively rare element for the model. This is only found on a quarter of B&M inverts. Meanwhile, all the inverts feature 0G rolls, all but one feature vertical loops, and all but two feature corkscrews. Phaethon's cobra roll has good Gs in the pullouts once again. They are stronger in the ascent in the front, and superior on the descent and back. The flips themselves do not have the vicious snaps of the 1990s B&M cobra rolls though. This one rides much more similarly to the element on Silver Bullet. The first half has the exact same elements as Raptor, just not quite as snappy. The second half is very similar to Silver Bullet, both in terms of the sequencing and forces. Phaethon then rises upwards. You get a smidge of float in the back. Then you navigate a 360-degree helix above the pathway. It swoops down and up. You get weak laterals on the entry in front. Then the low point offers solid positive Gs. The high points do let their foot off the gas though. Then this element offers exciting visuals both on and off ride. You then have the first of two corkscrews. This one has decent snap. Afterwards is a unique element for an invert, a banked bunny hill. No airtime, but it offers some surprise laterals. That is particularly true in the front as you're thrusted through the element. Then you careen through the second corkscrew. It rides just like the prior one. Phaethon then has a 540-degree helix. The second half of it exerts great positive Gs. Your legs will definitely be tingling here. You then rise upwards into the brakes and smoothly decelerate. You then turn back into the station, ending the 3,281 foot or 1,000 meter long experience. This ride has good length to it. It is the 8th longest B&M invert. Even more impressive is the fact it does not have a mid-course brake run, unlike most of the inverts ahead of it that feature one. The lack of a mid-course also helps with the pacing. This ride does very well in that department. The ride briefly lets its foot off the gas on the high points of the Cobra Roll and helixes, but everything else hits in my opinion. What about the smoothness? The front rows are glass smooth. The back has some light vibrations in a few valleys, but overall it is smooth and still very comfortable. What would I rate Phaethon? I would give this coaster an 8 out of 10. This is a nice inverted coaster. I enjoy the layout in terms of its sequencing and pacing. Then you have a mix of decent to good elements. There are other installations that are whippier and more intense, but this ride still exerts plenty of positive Gs. And it also has some rarer elements for the genre mixed in as well. How does this stack up to the other B&M inverts? It is towards the middle of the pack for me. That is not a dig in any way. This simply is one of the best looping coaster models out there, since they pretty much are all good to great. Those are my thoughts on Phaethon at Gyeongju World. What are your thoughts on this coaster? How do you think it compares to the other inverted coasters out there? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.